When I was a little girl, my mom kept telling me, my brothers and sisters, that everything that we question, we should investigate. And for everything that we investigated, we needed to find answers. And once we had the answers, we should always try to ask ourselves in front of the mirror, what can I do to change this? When I was 23 years old, I became a journalist specialized in gender issues and human rights. And then in 2003, this young girl escaped a trafficking network. She told me her story. A very famous guy was doing child pornography, and he was bringing high-profile politicians and businessmen that like to have sex with children in his hotel. So I wrote a book to expose this man and his network. In 2005, after my book was released, I was getting into my office one morning when a group of gunmen closed the streets without any arrest warrant or anything. They pushed me into a van. And for a 20-hour drive, I was tortured, sexually assaulted, and was threatened to be assassinated if I did not stop reporting. I'm 55 years old, and I have been a journalist for 30 years. I have received 27 death threats and many attempts. I've been tortured and put in jail. And this has only spurred me to understand that I have to defend my own human rights and the rights of every other girl. I decided to open a shelter, and I called it Centro Integral de Atención a la Mujer, a high-security shelter for battered and sexually exploited women and children. The call center is where the victims first get in touch with us, and then they go through a process of rescue and sheltering. We rescued a lot of girls, and every story is different. People find it really hard to feel empathy for girls that have been trafficked for the sex industry, because they think it is their choice, which is not true. There was a girl that was sold in Venezuela that was rescued. One day, this one woman saw her selling empanadas in the streets and said, "You're very pretty. You don't have to work here. You should be a model. You can earn a lot of money." This woman would take her out, gain her trust, set up a photo shoot, fly her to Cancun, take her ID and papers. And then she sold her. A policeman called the center and said, "We have this young girl that is from Venezuela, and she's just coming up with this horrible story." She ended up in the shelter, and then later on I learned how important it is for everyone in the world to train policemen and policewomen to understand how to detect and understand and treat victims of human trafficking. Our high-security shelter specializes in gender-based violence. We help victims with legal assistance, and we take all the cases from the beginning to the end. In 3 or 4 months, you cannot do much for a victim. Our survivors will stay for a year to a year and a half in order to get the psychological treatment and protection from the predators. Aside of the psychological therapy and all that, we look for a place for them to live safely and try to build a network for them in which they feel safe. We train them to reintegrate into society with work skills so that they can support themselves and feel free again. I ended up investigating her story, and then eventually, a year and a half later, 2 of the traffickers ended up in jail after they tried to kill her. I flew back with her to Venezuela to reunite her with the family. She is now working and volunteering in jail for gender issues with women. Through my investigative reporting, I willingly put my safety at risk to fight against discrimination, racism, and violence against women and girls by writing it. I will never stop questioning. I will never stop reporting. I'm a journalist.